Everybody, good evening. Good evening again. We just want to welcome you guys back to another episode of the Conversation 98. And I'm truly excited and happy to be back before you guys for another week. So we back again. And man, I am ecstatic to be here with you all. Super excited. And again, extremely grateful just for another opportunity to be with you all and be back among you all. And I know a lot of people enjoying themselves, got a lot of things going on. And with all that being said, man, I appreciate you. It means a lot to me. Means more than what you probably understand. But again, thank you guys so much. And we're just going to get right into it. Just sharing this with a few people. And make sure you share this and get it out there and let people know that, hey, let me know that you're in the building. Let me know where you're watching from, tuning in from. But we're here. And again, thank everybody so much. But I'm so excited again. We're episode 137. We're back in this thing, 137 episode. And I'm truly grateful for it because, never would I thought when starting this, when I was led, God put this on my heart to just start this conversation, that I'll be going either this long or it become a part of my life the way that it's been. So I'm extremely grateful for it, and I don't take it for granted. I don't take it for granted. And I'm thankful too because most of the times, I try to be as transparent as possible, because what was leading me up to even having this and starting this platform just was the simple fact that, I didn't see that, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, which I love it. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of podcasts, a lot of people putting a lot of things out. And there's a lot of conversations out there from from all walks of all different perspectives. But I felt like there wasn't one that I felt that was genuinely coming from a more so of a Christian perspective, that was dealing with real issues or real things that people deal with, and having a conversation, a transparent conversation, and have one where people bring a logical approach to it, and you look at certain things, issues that you may be going through, and just be honest and talk about it. Because guess what? We all deal with stuff. People deal with stuff. We deal with things go on, and why not talk about it? Because the Bible said we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. And we have to have that dialogue and be open and honest. And I think that this has been helpful. Hopefully it's been helpful, but I appreciate the feedback from everybody. But make sure you share this, let people know that we're in the building. We want to say shout out to Laramie this evening. What's going on, Laramie? Good to see you. My mom, thank you so much, Mom. I appreciate you more than what we even more than what anybody could even imagine. So I just want to thank her, and we're going to get right into it tonight, because we're going to talk about from this topic tonight. We're going to talk about, I'm not responsible for your expectations of me, but I'm responsible for my actions. And as I was thinking about it, we deal with so much pressure with dealing with people expectations of us, and we all can have expectations. I have expectations of my kids. I have expectations of the people that I'm charged of leading. I have expectations for people that I'm in relationships with. It doesn't matter if it's a spouse. It doesn't matter if it's an intimate relationship. It doesn't matter if it's a family relationship, cousins, siblings. We all have expectations, and there's nothing wrong with having expectations. But we got to realize that they are not responsible. Other people aren't responsible for our expectations, but they are responsible for their actions. So it's imperative for us to understand that even though I can have expectations for somebody, just because I have the expectations, that doesn't mean that it's gonna make it their responsibility to meet those. Now, this is the key. Just because they may not meet it, that doesn't mean that we still don't have those expectations, right? That don't mean that we still don't have those expectations. Because the reality is, many of us have unrealistic expectations of others that we don't even hold ourselves to that same standard. And then we get frustrated with them, right? But then we just want to force them to meet our expectations. They're gonna do what I want them to do. We expect them to do what I want them to do, and then we try to operate in a sense, and especially if we're in the role of an authority figure, we try to come down and boom, I expect you to do this. I expect you to do this. I expect you to do this, right? But guess what? I can have all the expectations in the world, but that doesn't mean that, guess what? Their actions, they are the ones responsible for their actions. And the whole thing is, I think a lot of times we get caught up in trying to make somebody else feel as if they are the ones of the expectations coming from them. And the key is to cultivate a relationship to where they can assume responsibility of their expectations themselves. And that's a critical thing. That's a very critical thing to do, because one thing that's hard, and I think what's hard for a lot of us is, as parents, we struggle so much because we have expectations for our kids. We assume the responsibility of bringing them up, training them up, setting them up for success, so they can fulfill their potential and their purpose and the destiny for their lives. But many of us fall into an era of, we have our expectations of them, right? And we try to force our expectations of them and make them accountable for our expectations, without respecting the fact that they are the ones that are going to be responsible for their actions. So we need to also realize that, yes, I may be responsible, and I'm going to fulfill my role in being responsible to making sure that they're in the best position possible. But there has to be a transference of ownership, of them understanding that this is what I expect of you. This is what I invested in you. But you have to be responsible. You are responsible for your actions, and you got to want that for yourself. You have to want that for yourself. And I see it so much. I experience myself. I see it so much, and especially with the dynamic of a parent and a child, because we get in this space very quickly, to where we get so angry at others for not meeting our expectations. But what we don't do is, we don't communicate effectively with them on explaining to them of the responsibility that they're responsible for their actions. And yes, you can want what's best. Yes, the person can have all the potential in the world. Yes, the person can do this, that, and the third. But if you don't explain to them or get them to take ownership of it and see it for themselves, we're just wasting our energy being frustrated because of our own expectations. And then guess what? The only person that be hurting with that, or going to be hurting from that, is us. It's not going to be them. It's going to be us. And many of us suffer with that big time, just always angry at other people. But guess what? The reality is, those are our expectations and not theirs. I know that's frustrating and it's a hard pill to swallow, but it is what it is. Why it is what it is. An individual have to want something for themselves. You can have expectations of them all they want to, right? And I'm not saying that your expectations of them is not is not valid. I'm not saying that just because you have expectations but it's based off somebody else's actions, that your expectations are invalid. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, just because you have expectations, that's not going to dictate to what somebody else is going to choose to do or even want to do. So it is very imperative that we understand that dynamic and understand that we, in some ways, begin to communicate, hey, this is why I have these expectations of you, because I see more in you. I see you can do more. And I would tell you, if we invest that time into that explanation and creating that understanding, you'll see a lot more. Your expectations be met a lot more, because you have bridged that gap. You have bridged that gap, right? And I'm finna really talk about something here. Talk about something that I know that hit close to home. Many times in relationships, people are so frustrated because they have to deal with unmet expectations. They have expectations of their spouse. They have expectations of their girlfriend and their boyfriend for what they want them to do, right? And many times we don't clearly communicate what our expectations are. Many times we don't even realize, or even we have even been cognitive enough to or take inventory to see, are they even capable of meeting our expectations, or are we taking inventory of ourselves and what I really am, what I'm expecting of them reasonable, right? And then the other side to it is, what am I willing, or what am I doing to meet their expectations? And so many times we try to make people responsible for our expectations, but we do a piss poor job of explaining to them or communicating to them what we actually want to need from them. And then now, when everything blows up, now we want to play the victim. Don't play the victim because you couldn't communicate your expectations to others, but you mad at them because they didn't meet them. You know, that's on you. You got to take that time to figure out what are your expectations? What are those things that we need? You know, most of the times we struggle with even communicating on what we need. The reason why we struggle with communicating what we need is because we don't really know what we need. We just like getting our way, right? And many times we have the expectation of getting something a certain way, even though we getting the things that we need, but because it's not how we want it or what we want, right? Or we don't even how we want it or what we want, we get frustrated and we act as if we're not receiving it. And we get in a space where we're not appreciative of what somebody is doing or has done for us. And then we get in that space, and then guess what? We erode those relationships. We wear them out to the ground. And then when they are eroded, then we want to act like we are the ones that were left hanging. But no, we weren't the ones that left hanging. We the ones that caused a lot of the issues because guess what? We didn't want to take ownership of our expectations, right? And that is so key. You know, one of the biggest things we need to realize is, you know, stop trying to make other people responsible for your expectations. They're not responsible for them. Your expectations are your expectations. And the dynamic of that relationship has a lot of weight into, you know, I honor what my parents think of me. I honor what my family think of me, right? But at the end of the day, no matter what they expect of me, I am the only person responsible for my actions. I am the only person responsible for my choices. I am the only person responsible for the things that I choose to and not to do. So if I'm not meeting their expectations, but their expectations of me is not something that I probably don't want to do, don't want to do, right? At the end of the day, why am I even worried about trying to be responsible for what they're expecting of me? Even if what they're expecting of me is for the better, right? I'm not saying that justifying being wrong, but I'm still not responsible for it at all. I'm not. And this is a dynamic that I feel that many of us, we struggle with, or we have struggled with, and we have dealt with throughout our lives, especially when you're talking about these dynamics of relationships. And I mean, when I mean by relationships, I'm speaking of relationships of, you know, not just intimate relationship, but more so on siblings, more so on loved ones, those that are close to us. And that's why it's so imperative that we have that, and we start to be able to communicate that, right? Because, you know, this is it. We can try to make other people responsible for what we expect of them to do. You know, we can expect our spouse to do X, Y, and Z. We can expect our kids to do X, Y, and Z. We can expect our co-workers. We can expect our bosses. We can expect our subordinates to do X, Y, and Z. And there's nothing wrong with having it. There's nothing wrong with having a standard. There's nothing wrong with pushing people to be better. We can have those expectations, right? But you are the only one responsible for your expectations. And sometimes have we taken inventory of, is what I'm expecting realistic based off of what's available for them? You know, because it's easy for me to expect somebody else to do something that I'm not resourcing them to do. Now, if I'm providing the resources for them, then I have to make a decision. Okay, am I going to continue to provide those resources, or am I going to pour those resources? Because it seems like those resources are being wasted. And I'm not going to waste those resources on somebody who's not willing to fulfill what I know they can do. But with that, guess what? I provided the resources, and I've communicated to them what I expect of them. And then I also will go to them and communicate, hey, this is the why behind it. Hey, I expect you to do this because I know this is what you can do. Right? And oh man, this right here is a good one. many of the times we don't communicate our expectations because, well, we don't communicate our expectations well because we are not living up to the standard of what we're expecting somebody else to be. We are trying to hold somebody else to a high level or a higher standard of what we expect them to do, but our own self personally, we're not living to that same standard, and it's hard for other people to even respect that when we feeling like, hey, they just should do it because I expect them to do it. No, don't be that parent and you want them to be respectful and you disrespectful. Don't be that leader that you're trying to hold them accountable to a standard that you're not trying to reach or you're unwilling to reach. Don't expect your spouse to be loving and caring and considerate of you, and you not loving and caring and considerate of them. Like those are hypocritical expectations, especially when you know that you are unwilling to fulfill and reciprocate that same energy. And that is facts. That right there is factual. That is factual. You can argue with it, but it is what it is. Because most of the time, our unmet expectations are a result of our unwillingness to reciprocate. We are unwilling to reciprocate. We are unwilling to provide that same energy back. We are unwilling to do the very thing that we're expecting others to do. And we try to make them responsible for something that they ain't responsible for. They're only responsible for their actions. Just like what I said in the title. I'm not responsible for your expectations of me, but I am responsible for my actions. So you can, unless you clearly communicate what your expectations of me, right? And then I have to be willing to meet those expectations. If I'm not willing to meet those expectations, they're still your expectations, but I'm only responsible for what I'm willing to do. And if that doesn't coincide with what you're providing to me, then you may need to reevaluate that relationship. And that's what it is. You may just need to reevaluate that relationship and see, is it even worth the investment in what you're putting in or what you have put in, right? And this is something that I've seen a lot of people struggle with. There's a lot of parents that struggle with letting their kids go. And what I mean by letting their kids go is, and I've said this all the time, train up a child in a way that they should go, right? And many parents struggle with this, and they hold on to things, and they keep their hooks in them longer than what they should do, because they trying to protect their kids. But look, you have raised them, you have invested in them, you have given them your best, right? And you can communicate to them what you want from them, which, quote unquote, those are your expectations of them. You want them to be responsible. You want them to be productive. You want them to be self-sufficient. You want them to have all of these things, right? But you communicate that to them. But many of us get caught up with trying to force them to do it, that we end up burning ourselves out and then pulling from our own peace and living our lives and living the abundance of the life that we have, because we don't want to let go. And you got to let that thing go. Let them kids grow. You got to let that thing go. Let them kids grow. You have to. So it's so important. And I'll tell you people this, it's so important to be able to understand that I'm not responsible for your expectations. I'm not. Nobody is responsible. Like, I expect certain things, right? Right. Now it goes down to somebody willing or not. But most of the time, this is a good one. This is a good one. Most of the time, people will be willing to meet your expectations if you take the time to be able to clearly communicate what you actually expect. And the issue that many of us have is we don't clearly communicate what we expect. We don't clearly communicate what we expect of others. We don't clearly communicate the things that we need. We don't clearly communicate. We just expect people to just figure it out and understand it, and they should just know. They should watch me and learn me. Yeah, some of that comes with time, but most of the stuff, hey, tell people, hey, I need this from you. And then when somebody clearly communicates what they need from you, where you ain't got to figure it out, and then you see those people still unwilling to provide that for you, then now you have to reassess, are you willing to even continue to invest in that relationship? Right? But just remember, those people aren't responsible for your expectations. They're not. So I tell you, man, I appreciate you guys, man. I appreciate you guys rocking with me tonight. I just wanted to come on the night show and just talk about, talk about that. I've been in thought all week about it, and it came up, and I shared it with my son. He was like, "Dad, that'll be something good to talk about." And I wanted to just deal with that because most of the time we think about expectations, right? We all we all have expectations. We all have expectations of ourselves. We all have expectations of others and those that are around us, those that we have to work with, those that we live with, those that we choose to be with and connect with. We have expectations, right? But the reality is the only person responsible for your expectations is you. It's not them. Now, it is our responsibility to clearly communicate what we expect of them. And now, if those people choose to work towards meeting those expectations, then that's different. But if they, because guess what? They are the ones responsible for their actions, not us, not our expectations, not what we want from them. We have to communicate our expectations. There's nothing wrong with having expectations, but there's something wrong when we try to make other people responsible for our expectations. Because at the end of the day, they're not responsible. They're only responsible for their actions. You're responsible for your expectations. Hey, I appreciate you guys, man. Again, I appreciate you guys rocking with your boy. Make sure you check out all my social media, as you see right here. All my social media stuff at go like and subscribe this at the Conversation 98 on YouTube, the Conversation 98 on Instagram at 98 Conversation, on Twitter, Facebook, Conversation 98, and on TikTok at the Conversation _98. Hey, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much. Shout out to Class Day Out going on down in the Black Belt multiple areas. And you guys have a great and wonderful evening. God bless.